The Gentleman, Season of Storms, Year 1. It was the greatest tower he had ever had the pleasure of owning, and the only tower he had ever had the pleasure of owning. It rose above the feeble earth, and even as incomplete as it was, the bones of his new serfs had been built into it, a monument to the control he had over them. It was grandiose, domineering, and powerful, like its owner, and Leopold was nowhere near it. Having sent his minions off after chastising them thoroughly in ways tailored to their personality, hopefully with the intent of sobering them against one another, Leopold felt that he deserved something of a little vacation. Besides, it seemed as if he had exhausted most of the potential labor from the sad little stone monsters, he'd have to find something else to compensate. This is what led him through his newly deforested domain, admiring the clear-cut view of the sky and the way the rain didn't quite dare to hit him, down to a certain stall by the sea.
Hey-oh there, man! You? Whoa, another actual human in a couple days? What are the odds of that? What can I do for you?
The man at the counter asked. Leopold smiled a toothy smile and took a seat, bracing his right arm against his lap.
Good afternoon, vendor. I have been traveling for some time, and the absolutely enchanting smell of your wares brought me here. I was wondering if I could sample some of them. For a fair price, of course. But oh, you say other travelers were here recently? Do tell. As a traveler myself, I'm always interested in the local gossip. Sure. But what d'ya want?
Paul asked as he adjusted his glasses. Something about the man seemed a bit off, but what it was exactly, Paul couldn't quite say.
Surprise me.
Leopold never stopped smiling, and finally Paul shrugged and set some soba on the fryer.
Well, I've had all sorts of visitors since this new tower showed up. More recently? Yeah, mostly more recently. These two young women came by, actually. They were very intense, and off to challenge the owner of the place, seemed convinced that they'd find something evil over there.
His grin flickering for a moment, Leopold snapped his fingers.
Damn, just missed them. We must have passed ways as I made my way here. How unfortunate. Oh.
Paul stopped, blinking and looking over at the older man from the frying noodles he was tending.
You tried to explore that place? In a manner of speaking. That's pretty brave, and it's too bad that you missed them. It would have been cool to have a little gathering of people from the old country, ahaha.
Paul placed the still steaming noodles onto a plate topped with generous portions of meat carved from a nut-like fungus Leopold himself had found quite filling. It was more flavorful than beef, but perhaps not as rich, something he'd have to rectify. Fishing around in his jacket pocket, Leopold passed several iron coins to Paul, who stared at them in confusion.
These look pretty new. Kinda sloppy, too. Are they from one of the townships around here? I was based quite a ways back southeast, maybe I just haven't seen them before. They're very new. I think they'll become popular, given time. Right on. Well, iron's valuable enough. I'll take 'em gladly.
Paul smiled and Leopold returned it, and suddenly Paul realized what was bothering him. The old man hadn't stopped smiling wolfishly at him since they'd started speaking. It was a lean, hungry smile, the kind you see on a dog that hasn't been fed in weeks, and is watching its owner for a sign of weakness or exhaustion. Feeling unnerved and trying to reassure himself, Paul reached under the counter, passed the cucumber soda for his private reserve, a synthetic liquor that was as tasteless as it was strong.
Ah!
He was surprised to hear excitement, genuine excitement, from the man at the counter. For a minute, a glimmer of life had entered into the man's eyes and he ignored his untouched food to watch the bottle excitedly.
A moment, come on now, that's alcohol, isn't it? Aquavit? The water of life? I haven't had any in quite some time, and you know, I wouldn't be opposed to parting with some more coin for just a drop. Heh, I'd figured a guy like you'd prefer wine or something to rot gut like this. Still, a customer is a customer. 5 more of those coins you got for a cup of this.
Leopold paid 7 coins, and 6 cups later the two had become quite convinced that they were the best of friends.
But the problem is, of course, nothing here makes sense. That's why it's entirely necessary to bring order to the place. Order is important. If you don't have order, all sorts of terrible stuff happens to people who don't deserve it. Take me, for example. Yeah? What do you deserve?
Paul tried to fumble for his glasses and ended up pushing them up too high. They fell between his fingers, which seemed hilarious, and he placed them on backwards. The two shared a laugh, as Leopold nursed his 7th round.
A lot. My life has been so hard. You wouldn't believe it. Doesn't that go for everyone though? Kind of. Sort of. Perhaps. But I don't care.
Leopold frowned, trying to crush the cup between his fingers, but disappointedly realizing that the gesture looked less impressive when it was a red and white disposable mug.
Would you believe a lot of people come around telling me about stuff they've seen, and get this, they try to pass it off as magic.
Paul laughed, nearly slapping the friar.
Magic? Nothing of the sort exists. It's all parlor tricks, willpower, and a bit of technical know-how. Exactly. Thing is, people here are very... was a word. Convinced. One can only imagine. Like that purple guy. I bet he believes in magic. My amo-en. My man. Good to see you.
Leopold tried to wave, then fell off the stall seating and into the grainy grey sands of the beach. Mammon, who was bewildered beyond all expectation, hesitantly walked over.
Boss? Geez, you're sloshed, aren't you? It's nothing. Just enjoying my prerogative. You should sit with us. Have a drink. That's what men do. Come on, then.
Leopold tried to pull himself from the sand, but had great difficulty doing so, and finally, and equally hesitantly, Mammon helped him back up into the seat. Paul was already trying to find something for Mammon to use, but Mammon shook his head and wheeled his cart over.
Drink, pal?
Paul asked, but Mammon shook his head.
No thanks, I never drink when on the job. But if that's some cucumber soda, I'll buy 3 of them. I love that stuff. F real? What the hell is wrong with my life? Never mind. 10 for 3. 3 for 3. 5. 4. 3, 2, 1 countdown.
The two, of which Paul suddenly seemed very sober indeed, jolted as Leopold face faulted into the counter, snoring soundly.
Man, that guy can't hold his liquor at all, can he? Man, and to think I thought he was dangerous at first.
Paul relaxed, though he still couldn't quite place why he was sure Mammon was purple. Probably a little drunk, he decided.
Yeah. That's something to remember.
Mammon muttered darkly under his breath, not even shooting the snoring old man one look of his golden irises.
You two know each other? And, since you just bilked me of some choice and premium cucumber soda, any chance I can get you something noodly and delicious? I dunno if you would say we know each other, but we're acquainted. And sure. Any chance you've got some chilies you could fry up with some crispy noodles? We're talking charcoal tier here. I like mine spicy and smoky. Can do, pal.
Soon the air was once again filled with the scent of aromatic peppers being sliced into thin strips and cast into a bed of already lightly fried noodles. It was at this point that the rain began to let up, now only falling at a gentle pace like a summer storm. Not the torrential deluge that had been driving the ground towards the sea, earlier. The flapping of wings could actually be heard over the receding rain, and as they grew closer.
Hey, Grim. I saved a cucumber soda for you.
Without looking towards his companion, Mammon grinned sharply and held out a bottle of the stuff. The harpy sniffed, clasped the beverage in one claw, and then sniffed again before making a face.
Blah, how plebeian.
Taking a very tiny sip, her eyes widened in delight.
Although not bad, necessarily. I suppose I could manage a slight thanks, dear Mammon. But who is this fine fellow? Oh, wow. A talking bird. That's really something. Is she your pet? Pet.
Crimsolino squawked in barely restrained rage, her neck extended and her teeth all but bared for Paul's throat.
Whoa, Crim, easy. Please don't kill the nice noodle guy. Man, that's so cool. I almost believed for a minute your bird was talking to me. That's a pretty cool trick. Yeah. Just ignore her, alright? She's heard a lot of snippets of conversation from her long and storied life, and just kind of repeats it at random. Are you implying I am old I will end you?
Crimsolino straightened her neck and ruffled her feathers almost as quickly as she had grown angry, a strange serenity coming over her features.
Apologies. Those who cannot see my beauty are cursed enough as it is, and clearly that is why this poor, deluded man is convinced I am not but a songbird. Tragedy begets tragedy, shopkeep. And now, I eat your noodles.
Her barely concealed rage stifled, albeit temporarily, by a faceful of curried pepper noodles. Mammon felt it safe to tentatively ask for more information.
So, what did this old guy ask about? He must have been pretty sad to get trashed so quickly. Not exactly. It just seemed like he was lonely. I can't tell quite how old he is, but maybe he lost a son or something. Like me, he got sent here pretty recently. I can all but be certain of it. Look at him. The guy looks like a castaway. He seemed pretty frightening at first, but I'll tell you right now, guy is just a lonely lost soul, in need of healing noodles and good company, and luckily, I can provide both.
Paul and Mammon exchanged wide grins, and Mammon replied.
You are, literally, the worst judge of character I have ever met.
Mammon paused, then shrugged, and added.
You make amazing noodles, though. Tip.
And throwing the bemused Paul a few extra coins that shimmered a fake golden hue in the dimming storm, Mammon began the arduous task of loading Leopold into his cart and guiding said cart home. When they were safely out of distance from the shop, Crimsolino began to talk avidly, perched against the rim of the cart as if it were a reliable, if somewhat bumpy, nest.
Poor man, deprived of true sight. Do you think he's going blind? It would explain the glasses. No. I'm not sure what his deal is. But seriously, those were the best damn noodles I've had outside of the dark world.
He wasn't sure if he should ask, but threw caution to the wind. They had a lot of mostly unpaved road to cover, and Leopold did wake up eventually.
Was he particularly bad? I'd prefer not to discuss such things. Business, of course, is to continue to assist sweet Leopold for as long as we can. I'm sure the rewards for doing so will benefit the both of us.
She didn't squawk or gripe as they ran over rocks and holes in the dirt where rocks had once been, and the lack of complaints seemed terrifyingly unnatural. He wanted to say something stupid that she could leap on, but trying to make artificial mistakes as hard as it is easy to make them naturally.
You know, he sent me to a village. To look for some gateway. Apparently it had once been a borehole that a legendary serpent deity had carved from the sea into the isle itself, and sweet Leopold plans to use it to try to awaken the one that sleeps beneath. He told me as much. Said he told you to search it at any cost. He did. Did you? I did.
Silence once again fell, and no longer did the rain stop to punctuate it. The afternoon had faded to a crisp and temperate night, and Mammon could feel the burgeoning of buds under his feet. It wouldn't be long before the skin-dent season, when buds and harvests made everything blossom. For someone with both a very sensitive nose and severe hay fever, it wasn't his favorite season, to put it lightly.
Mammon. Not dear Mammon. No.
Crimsolino sighed, exhaling a peal of fiery breath, just enough that smoke trailed throughout the crystalline air.
I met some survivors, I think. Or perhaps they were adventurers, I cannot say. Amongst them, there was one such as our Leopold. For whatever reason, I would not. Crim, it's fine. That's good, right?
Crimsolino watched the fire die, and then the smoke die. She did not move, but her eyes betrayed her fear.
I am terrified that he will find out. I do not want him to find out.
Paranoia caused Mammon to shoot a glance towards Leopold, but to his great relief the older man was still in a self-induced coma.
Look, for what it's worth, if we're being all trustworthy with one another, I saw some people, too. 2 girls, young women, really. I think they were gunning for him.
Crimsolino said nothing. If she was happy or saddened by the news, it did not show.
So, that makes us even, I guess. Anyway, you know I wouldn't just go and tell him something like that. I hate confrontation, and the last thing I want is people I know getting punished for doing the right thing.
Mammon sighed and tried to pretend the stars captivated him. The tittering laughter of the former Duchess demolished that illusion.
Your infatuation is cute, dear Mammon. Childlike perhaps, though your courtesy is very, very appreciated. And in return, I promise much the same. Even so, there was something else I wished to discuss. It is.
At that moment, Leopold let out a mighty yawn and stretched, his right hand raised high even as his left dangled to his side, rising up and down as the cart hit another pothole in the road.
Good. Heavens, is it evening? What happened? I was talking to some fool by the beach, and now I'm...
Instantly, Leopold was on his feet, cane in hand and eyes wild, though they rapidly relaxed as he realized where he was.
Mammon, Crimsolino. What a pleasant surprise. I take it you both have good news to report to me? Failing that, you have no bad news to report to me. No, sir. No luck on the giant hole straight to hell, although we both looked high and low. Looks like we'll be doing this the hard way. Which might not be bad, as I did hear rumors that the easy way was a dead end in the first place.
Rolling his eyes, Leopold smiled bitterly.
Your rumors are persuasive in how obvious an attempt at dissuading us they were. One must choose their sources more carefully, demon. Crimsolino, my pretty red egress, tell me you have something more useful to confide to me.
Crimsolino clucked her tongue irritably.
I might, if you had spent even a fraction of the time you had arranging your toy tower finding me nice things.
Leopold affected a disappointed and paternal grin, a self-effacing lie that did little to hide his anger.
Well, you're both useless, then. Too bad, though the evening was pleasant enough. Afternoon, I suppose. Time really does fly, doesn't it? But who cares, really? With the rain easing up, it should be an excellent time to begin the ritual. Boss, I don't know entirely how I feel about this. I mean, just from a personal perspective. Couldn't you work with demons or something like that? I mean, I'm not much given, but wouldn't that be yards better than the whole dig up terrible thing in the center of the earth idea? Noted, Mammon, and rejected offhand. Will you note that I refile the matter with a clause of I told you so if this turns out to be a really bad idea? Perhaps. Though I'd be much more interested in hearing why you are opposed to the ritual. Have either of you actually performed it before? Or known anyone who has? I have.
Crimsolino said swiftly, and without emotion. Her eyes were focused on the road ahead, and she was terse as she spoke.
There is nothing wrong with ambition. One could say that those without it live a pale life, for they are then content to their lot, and willing to take whatever they are given, regardless of how cruel. And this relates to my patience.
Her voice was not chastising, but lost in the roads of a memory far more treacherous than the roads they journeyed across now, free of obstacle and opposition.
But ambition is not the same as intellect, nor foolhardiness the same as ambition. There was a legend handed down by my parents, the Duchess Dowager, specifically, of one. This woman had no ill intent, or even a goal beyond finding out what lay above. So she tunneled through the sky like it were soil, until she found where the clouds tasted like tin.
Crimsolino paused, and Leopold curled his lips in a frown, but did not interrupt.
She could see it, from there. The temple where the beast sleeps, if it truly exists. And of course, even asleep, it could see her, as well.
Her eyes shut, and Crimsolino gave a half-shrug from her feather-lined shoulders.
I suppose it may not have even been trying to, but whatever light it gave off first flensed her flesh from bone, then turned her bone into solid glass. The sorcerer fell from the skies for hours, then broke upon the beach, and that is why some of the beaches here have sands of glass. Ha ha!
Leopold replied, relief returning to his face.
You essentially interrupt me to speak of a childhood fable, a fairy tale. Cute, but no real reason to worry about the plan. And though I thank you for sharing it, oh Duchess, I am aware of the danger that these creatures possess. I have no intent to anger them, or even wake them. That, you shall see soon enough.
As silence returned to the cart, something seemed to strike Leopold. The old man began to stroke his beard thoughtfully, then giggle. Crimsolino's normally golden face turned a slight red out of embarrassment, and Mammon couldn't help but try to look away as Leopold continued to laugh quietly, and then finally burst into uncontrollable laughter that rasped from his throat.
That guy. He didn't even believe in magic. What sort of idiot? Doesn't. My sides. Stop, stop, I need to vomit.
Uncomfortable minutes passed as Mammon remembered unpleasant days when he had roomed with a party animal who had supposedly been assigned to chaperone the Dark Lord. Finally, Leopold stumbled back into the cart and waved his cane authoritatively at the air in front of them, eyes opening and shutting in an attempt to stay open.
Forward. The future awaits us, and I won't be delayed because I'm riding in a second-rate cart.
Instead, they were delayed because the road was unpaved and Leopold collapsed again shortly after, his face making a satisfying crack every time the cart ran up against an upturned stone. And Mammon took care to hit as many as he could see. The cart left a trail of wooden tread marks in the slowly cracking slurry that the rain and mud had once been shaped into, and as it vanished towards a confrontation with those who waited at a certain tower for its return, the air around the tracks began to simmer and glow and shine with an unearthly light, the color of which was neither green nor black, but something between. Where the cracks in that color appeared, reality itself twisted, bending in directions that defied description until they tore apart at the seams. For a moment, an inescapable colorlessness was visible, and then the world snapped back to the way it had been moments before. With one exception. The entity known as Grendolf breathed deeply through nostrils that could not smell, and tasted the air with skeletal senses that could not separate oxygen from atmosphereless space.
How very peculiar. Another seeks the existence of those that dwell below and above. And so forcefully. Troublesome. This may take precedence over the current situation.
Around his fingers, several serpents composed of tiny white hexagons began to coalesce, turning a light violet as they began to harden into the shape of a staff. Grendolf tapped the staff against the ground twice, and the earth shuddered, then relented. Lipless gums curling into a satisfied smile, Grendolf opened the nothingness once again, and ceased to exist in the plane that was. When Leopold awoke for the second time, he was covered in a cold sweat, only capable of remembering the tiniest fragments of his dreams. In them, he had been in other places, neither dead nor alive, and of the things he had seen, he remembered the earth giving birth to countless monsters, all of which had remembered him and hungered for something, and the worst part, is that the memory seemed dear. Trying to remain calm, he turned to yell at Mammon, only to realize that the cart had not only stopped but was turned over, the wheel spinning helplessly in the air. Eyes narrowing and brows furrowed, the old man rose to his feet, leaning heavily against his cane as he gestured in the air, yelling impatiently.
Mammon! Crimsolino! Come to me! I beseech your aid!
His voice echoed throughout the darkness, but nothing replied, and he knew it was not for their disavowal. As the season drew open and the sun rose, so too, were they waiting for him. Not those he had expected, however, but... Chapter end.